Treble Bleed mod. So, what is it? How does it work? And do you want or need one? It's a resistor capacitor parallel wired circuit. It goes on the volume pot of your guitar. As you turn the volume down or turn the pot's resistance up, it lets more high frequencies pass through, so you can retain note clarity and brightness as you turn the volume down. So your electric guitar signal is an electrical signal. It has amplitude, right? And it's got to pass through your volume knob before it gets to the output jack. Your volume knob, or the pot that it's attached to, is the potentiometer, and it's also called a variable resistor. So in a Les Paul, these are typically 500K, and that means the maximum resistance, so 500 kilo ohms or 500,000 ohms. And if the knob is set to 10, the resistance is decreased and close to 0, so your amplitude is effectively unchanged. It goes through the pot as if it's not even there, and it goes to the output jack. As you turn the knob down to close to 0, the resistance increases up to the maximum, which in this case would be 500 kilo ohms, effectively muting the amplitude completely because it's decreased that signal to pretty much nothing. So some players might notice the tone gets darker or muddy as you turn the volume down, and this is because the higher fidelity frequencies get rolled off, partly due to the capacitance with your cable, your pickups, the other electronics in your guitar, and it creates a filter that changes the frequency response of the signal as it goes down. So the Treble Bleed mod is actually a high-pass filter that allows higher frequencies to pass through and bypass most of the resistance of that pot, and it also reduces the lower frequencies, gives you a thinner, brighter sound as you turn the volume down. So the circuit itself is just a resistor and a capacitor wired in parallel, one end attached to the input and one end attached to the output lugs of the volume pot. The resistor value will alter the taper of the pot a little bit, and the capacitor value sets the cutoff frequency for the filter. So frequencies above this cutoff frequency will pass through, and frequencies below the cutoff frequency will be attenuated as the volume gets rolled down. You can math them out, or you can just experiment with them. Common values are 150 kilo ohm resistor and a 1 nanofarad capacitor, or a lot of people call it a 001 microfarad capacitor, with the same value. And that configuration, which I have here, corresponds to a cutoff frequency of around 1 kilohertz. They're really easy to install, and they can help you get a tone that you like better with playing with the volume knob if that's something you do a lot. If you use something like a volume pedal or whatever, obviously this isn't going to affect that in any way. I have a handful that I made. I installed 2 each on 2 of my guitars, one for each volume, and I'm going to do a little A-B comparison for you guys. One of them is one of my drop D guitars. It's an Epiphone Les Paul Custom in a Koa finish. It's got a Seymour Duncan SH6 in the bridge, and all the wiring has been replaced with 500K CTS pots and some orange drop caps. The other guitar is an Epiphone Les Paul Plus Top Pro, or like their old standard series, and it's had all the wiring replaced as well with 500K CTS pots, as well as Tom Anderson H1 minus in the neck and a Tom Anderson H3 plus in the bridge. So for each guitar, I'll play the same riff thing once without the mod installed, and then once with the mod installed. I'm doing each pickup. I'm starting on volume 10, and then I'm going to volume 5, and then I'm going to volume 2. So 3 rounds of the riff on each pickup, once without the mod and once with the mod. So there you have it. I like the sound of them. I like to put them in specific guitars, especially because I like to play around with the volume knob quite a bit. And I just like the extra brightness and the extra output that you get because you have the higher frequencies that are passing through. It just helps me get a little more usability out of the volume knobs. If you have a Les Paul that's wired in 50s style, you might not need these, but the modern style wiring is where these come in handy. I had those two guitars that I showed get rewired for me a couple of years ago. I've had these installed in the blue one, the Epiphone Standard, for a while, but they were different components, so I switched them out to these new ones that I just made. And both those Les Pauls were wired in the modern style, so they would benefit from having a Treble Bleed circuit installed. I'm going to throw a few of these on my Reverb store, shameless plug, so if you're looking for them, you can go get them there. I've soldered them onto little alligator clips to make them non-destructive, so you can install them, check them out. If you don't like it, you can just unclip them, and that way you don't have to solder anything. If you do want to solder them in, you can just take some wire cutters and clip the little solder point right on the alligator clip, and you can put it in there permanently. I've used metal film resistors and film capacitors. You can use film or ceramic capacitors, it doesn't really matter. I just prefer to use film capacitors when there's audio going through. So that's my little mini deep dive on the Treble Bleed circuit. Hopefully it was informative or entertaining, or both. Thanks.